Okay, good evening, everyone. And we have made it now. We're beyond the halfway point of this wonderful, where's my book? Oh, I put it right up here with Swamiji, Little Secrets of Prosperity book, which is just being a joy to go through and really consider each secret. It's quite remarkable. It took me all this time on the path to do this, but now I'm hooked on the whole secret series. So just as always, we'll have a prayer, a little short meditation. Prayer, chant, meditation, and then music. And then we'll have some, I'll talk a little bit, and we'll have some discussion. So, James, can the people online participate? Yes. It's a Zoom. Is it a Zoom? Yeah. Okay, so great. In the chat box, you can always leave a question or a comment, and they are welcome. So let's begin with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, Paramhansa Yogananda Ji, saints of all religions, friend and guide Swami Kriyananda, we lovingly bow before you all. Dear Swamiji, we feel such gratitude for the wisdom you have brought to us, for your patient explanations, for your perfect living example of how to live these teachings in such a way that they take us to self-realization. This book on prosperity is rich with various ways, with all teachings, to open our heart, remove all traces of ego, and expand into your vastness. Om Shanti. Amen.
I want only thee, Lord, thee, only thee. 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 I want
James, let's listen to that one more time. We were sitting here right before class started, looking for the perfect chant and the perfect song, and then you hear that song, so beautiful, and you think, what topic could we be talking about that it wouldn't be perfect? Lakshmi was sort of just saying this song, that song, and I thought, they're all perfect. It's hard to know where to go. Yeah. Okay. So here we are. We're on day 16 of the Secrets of Prosperity. And it's actually, I was going to say it's actually so profound and rich, but I think I might say that every 2 weeks. They actually are. Here's what Swamiji says. He says, the secret of prosperity is realizing that what you own is held by you in trust. Treat it responsibly. If you squander it, the trust will pass to another. Such a beautiful play on words. You know, I mean, when there's almost no talk about money, but he just finds the way to weave the concept of prosperity the way the average person would. So I'm going to read it one more time. The secret of prosperity is realizing that what you own is held by you in trust. Treat it responsibly. If you squander it, the trust will pass to another. Very beautiful reading. I'll put that right there. So, a lot of concepts came. We'll see how we go through them. And let me just grab my glasses so I can inconspicuously see the clock. I've really come to enjoy the interactive part of this class, so anything that comes to you, hold on to it, yeah. Both Swamiji and Master actually write quite a bit about this, but they don't call it your trust fund. I mean, they don't use these words, but they actually do write quite a bit about it. And they speak about it, each of them, and I'll read you some quotes from them, about what it means, two concepts that come together that are very familiar to us. One is, of course, us being beings of energy. None of this is new to anybody. And how meaningful it is that our energy becomes our magnetism, and how important it is to use that magnetism consciously and thoughtfully, because we're drawing so much to ourselves. And that dictates, because magnetism, number one, we can draw anything to ourselves depending on what energy we put out. So we could be drawing higher teachings, expansive thoughts, uplifting energy. We could just as easily be drawing energy that has to do with materialism, with sexuality, with sensuality. I mean, it's endless. So to be conscious in what we draw, because that becomes our trust fund. In essence, they don't say that. I'm saying that, but since Swamiji used the word trust, that's what it is. We're basically drawing things in and banking it. And we need to be thoughtful about what we draw in and how we use it. Really paying attention to and respecting the power and the quality of our own magnetism. This is, well, it's not really an aside at all. This is the difference between living consciously and unconsciously. So I used to say in classes many times, I think in beginning meditation, because I haven't said it for a long time, so often when people talk to me, which still happens, they say very often some phrase like, I have no idea how that happened. Whatever it is, that they wound up in a marriage that was bad, that they wound up in nights of a relationship that were bad, it's usually that, or what was I thinking when I started back to school, and then I didn't want to be there at all. It's endless, everything. But they're genuinely surprised, like having no idea how that happened. Living consciously and respectfully with our magnetism means that we know exactly how everything happened, that there's a conscious intention towards what we're drawing to ourselves, how we're behaving. I was talking with Lakshmi earlier today. We just got into a conversation about what it means to be a staff member or a manager of this Sangha. And it's not just exactly what people think, because we see all of the events that are put on, classes that are put on, altars that need to get made, chairs that need to be exactly lined up, cleaning things. Just the organizational aspects of it are huge and very important. But every moment, and it's not just here, if we are leaders in the world, if we're taking charge of our life wherever we are, I'm looking at a therapist over here. I'm just thinking about whatever we do, we have to carry ourselves. And really what it means, it's not arrogant, it's not putting something on, it's making sure as often as we can that our energy, that we're drawing energy in and bringing it up, and that's how we move through the world, whether we're walking into a patient's room, whether we're in here early Sunday morning setting up for Sunday service, that our energy is affecting everything and everyone around us. And it's not like we don't all slip at times. You know, we're tired, or we come in and we're irritated, or any of the things that can happen. But we can be sure, number one, that we are letting our energy slip out. We're depleting our trust fund. That's number one. Number two, that energy is having a profound effect on everyone. So it's actually wonderful, in a way, that we are charged with, once we become conscious and we want to live that way, that we are charged with keeping that energy raised, being very conscious of what we do with our energy. And it's not, it can make it sound very tense, but it's not. But whenever we slip for even a moment and let it go down, which we all do, that's okay, but it affects everything. It's like that, and it really does. It's like that when we used to read, I don't even know where I used to read it, but I'm sure Swamiji and Master must have said it, that every drop of water in the ocean affects the entire ocean. If you remove any amount of water, every single thing in the ocean has to readjust. I didn't know I was going to say any of this, but it's actually it's relevant. It's completely relevant to being able to understand so much of what they talk about. I was mentioning magnetism because Swamiji was talking, and whatever I was reading about magnetism, and as I said before, the power and quality of our magnetism. But he says, it's not wrong, therefore, to use our power of magnetism to acquire a measure of worldly prosperity. So he's saying it's fine to be prosperous on the material plane if we do not, in the process, entomb ourselves in our possessions. That's the first thing he says. And it's so well said. It's good to have them if you don't entomb. What a word. Whoever uses that word. You know, I don't know if this was Swamiji or Master, but what a great choice of words. Entomb ourselves in our possessions. It's fine to acquire health if we do not become health fanatics, and to cause the doors of opportunity to open for us if we truly seek worthwhile opportunities and do not squander our power in detours of mere diversions. So I've said this so many times, not nearly as well, but how many times I remember myself saying, you can't have anything in the world that's wrong. If you love shoes and you want to have 50 pairs of shoes, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, as long as you're A, not attached to them, and B, you don't believe that that's where your happiness comes from. And it sounds simple to us. That example would sound simple. Same's true of a beautiful car or a beautiful house or even our professions. Whatever it is, it's the attachment and the worldliness of it that has us squander the power that we've been given, that we've chosen to use through this mechanism of our own magnetism in what one of them is calling mere diversions. It's very well said. I mean, again, much better said than I used to say it, though it's exactly the same point. So Master now is saying that the basis of all desires, the desire initially is not what's wrong, should be to wish to find God and to please him. So if all of what we're doing, even if, say, dressing a certain way, because most of us care about how we dress, and if we want to look a certain way, but knowing that we're doing it to raise our magnetism and to be able to serve God through that uplifted energy. There's nothing that you can't fit. You got him? Wow. He came to you. For those of you online, if you're there, there was a rather sizable insect that came in to hear these teachings. Somehow he just went right to Lakshmi. Good job. Yeah. So, Master says, do not feel that your material desires, being worldly, have no place in your spiritual life. It's interesting, isn't it, to think of this way? This would be the surest way of directing them to your own detriment. He's saying, if we hold it, that it has nothing to do with anything spiritually, then it's like saying, I can't accomplish this, can I, Master? In that reading that we do every year. We go through it once a year. I think it was Norman who was saying, but I'll never be able to do that, will I? And Master says, you just answered your own question, because it's the thought that we bring to it. So he says, if we feel that our material desires are just there for worldly pleasure, then we're directing them to our own detriment rather than toward ultimate freedom, rather than toward even feeling the joy around them or the love of certain things, and immediately directing that love to God. Because then the shoes are beautiful and we can enjoy them, but we use that in a way just by how we direct the energy to open our heart and to feel God's love. This past Sunday when I was speaking, and it just came back to mind, that experience of behaving in a loving way with people, of being generous of spirit, so opens your heart. So you're having a human-to-human interaction, but suddenly you have this feeling of God. You really feel something divine. And I know you've all heard me tell that story of when my friend Donna went to Florida and was telling me I had to go to that city. You're going to love this city. You've got to go and feel it. It's the most wonderful place. And a few months later, I traveled down to Florida. I was living on the East Coast. I went to this city, and it was horrible. It was utterly horrible. It was ugly. It was empty. I was thinking to myself, what in the world? This is a woman who knows beautiful things and nice beaches. And I went home, and I said to her, what happened to you while you were down there? She said, you know that guy I was telling you about that I met? And I thought, yeah. So her heart was wide open, and what she was seeing and experiencing was beauty. In a way, it's perfect, but it's exactly what they're saying. It was unconscious on her part. It's better if we do it consciously, but still. Then Master says, rather seek even their fulfillment. This is worldly possessions that he's talking about now. Rather seek even their fulfillment from God in meditation, that the true source of your power be realized not as the little ego, but as the infinite divine self. So he's just saying, refer everything back to God. Everything, every little thing that we buy, that we own, every experience, and then we're bringing it back to the source, not just of our power, but to our source. Seek also God's guidance, that you desire always that which is truly for your own highest good. Okay, so this is all we're talking first about magnetism and drawing energy and using that energy well and not squandering it by seeing it. Because remember, squander is the main word with our trust fund that we were talking about in the reading here. Then I pulled out a reading where Swamiji was explaining what Kundalini is. So we're going from magnetism to energy just showing you how my mind was working today, because it's not like there's a chapter in any book on squandering. It doesn't work that way. So I found this, whatever Swamiji wrote, I'm going to read some of it to you about Kundalini, and I'll show you how it works. This is, I don't know where this is from, not Raja Yoga. Kundalini represents the entrenched vitality of our mortal delusion. Isn't that the entrenched vitality of our mortal delusion? But Kundalini is also man's greatest single key to enlightenment. So he's saying all of the ways that we allow all of the energy to remain entrenched in the very lowest aspect of our astral spine, that's what happens. We're grounded. But within that energy lies the greatest single key to enlightenment. Now, we would know that if we thought about it, because we all know what Kundalini is. Only by arousing this force from its ancient resistance, to divine truth, can the soul hope to reunite itself with the spirit. So he's saying all of the energy that we need for enlightenment is there. And it's only by awakening or releasing Kundalini that we have any hopes of being reunited with God. Then he says the dragon, which is Kundalini, deals certain depth to all who would steal its treasure for selfish gain, who think, in other words, to squander the soul's power for worldly ends, which is, after all, how most people live. They take whatever energy they have, whatever power they have, it's misinterpreted. It's used to attain things in the material world, not to reunite itself with God. For it is from man's very ego-centeredness that this monster derives all of its power. So Swamiji's saying to us, again, you have this huge reserve of energy, huge. If you squander it out in the world, then that's where you'll be. If you actually do what we need to do to direct that energy up, to release it, first of all, which of course we do it primarily through Kriya Yoga. But remember, Master said also every time we smile, some of it's released. And he meant that. I mean, that's a truth. Every time we do a good deed, say a nice word to anybody, that we're releasing Kundalini consciously. It's the whole meaning of this reading. Don't be unconscious. Stay conscious. Watch that energy. Start releasing it, but watch what you're doing with it. Very hard to do because we all have moods, we all have desires, we're all squandering it. We are, but when you read this and you see how essential it is to be on top of it and pay attention, it's inspiring to do better. And anyway, so let me move on from Kundalini, but I wanted to start to draw a picture and an image of energy in all of its various forms and what using it rightly means as opposed to squandering it. Squandering means being unconscious. And again, if we weren't doing some of that, we wouldn't be here, but it doesn't matter. In the human condition, it's expected that we'll do that. But what Master and Swamiji keep saying is, come on, bring it back. You can do this. Use every experience that you have as a road to get back to the divine. These are beautiful words that they've written, actually. Perfect spiritual safety is reached only when Kundalini becomes united at last with her perfect positive pole. Only then is the storm of duality finally stilled and the self no longer in rebellion against God, then merges completely into the infinite self, becoming the infinite. So that's the basics. That's squandering 101, basically. You know, this is all sort of 101 as I read on, because now I'm just going to show you little bits and pieces that I found that they wrote. I don't know who wrote these. I mean, one of those two wrote these things. I think Master said this, actually. If you want to gain perfect peace and quiet, keep to yourself as much as possible. That's quite a phrase, but I get it. This does not mean that you shouldn't see your friends and others, but do not squander time in idle chatter and unnecessary contacts. That is meaningful and important and hard, even in our big community, to avoid, short of being rude. I mean, even if you feel that, even if you, I remember one time there was an issue going on in the community, and I approached a woman who I had heard was part of the problem. And she's a very religious kind of person. And I said to her, I want to talk to you because I think you could help out here. And she knew what was going on with a few people who were naysayers in the community at the time. This was a few years ago. And I said, but I understand that you've been talking with them right away. I don't say anything, though. I said, well, first of all, that's not what I've heard. I've heard you do also contribute. But even being there, just your willingness to stay there when all of this negativity is going on is contributing. You could just as easily stand up and say, I really don't want to be a part of this. This isn't right. This is our community. And she was really just bent on making the point with me that she wasn't a part of it. But I stayed equally strong, making a point that she was a part of it. And I think that's a big part of what Master Swamiji just said. Let's not squander our time, which is energy, in idle chatter and unnecessary contacts. It's important. They result only in restlessness and nervousness. And we don't often think that, but I think it's true. How much more peaceful do we all feel after we've spent an hour alone and quiet? Even some of our best friends, but really, we can feel the most calm after we've been quiet or alone for a little bit. We can calm ourselves, collect our energy. Master says, try always to avoid wasting time. This is very interesting how he says that. He says, dismiss the job just finished and allow the next to take its turn. Don't hang on to whatever you're done with. Let it be done. Let go of it so that you're not, again, it's all about energy. That's all of what we're talking about here. If you have entrusted someone else with part of your work, dismiss that part from your mind also. Very important. I'm going to ask you later why you're laughing, but do we have the, yeah, it's up here. Do you want to say why you're laughing right now? It just struck you. But it's a very important thing that he said. If you have entrusted someone else with part of your work, dismiss that part from your mind.
It just occurred to me how difficult it is, and how wonderful it is when we can really completely trust that this is not yours, you're giving it. And
It's true. I mean, what you're saying is true, though. You can giggle because you think, this is so hard. It sounds so simple, but it's hard. You finish a task, let it go. Be done with it. Because if you carry it and you compound everything, you get anxious, restless. You do, which is what Master's saying here. But then again, that next thing, if you give something away, let it go. He's saying otherwise we clutter ourselves with unnecessary energy. And we feel that. We feel conflicted, torn, taking ourselves in many directions. Hold yourself in readiness to react calmly to the ordinary challenges of life and avoid reacting with irritation. Now you can laugh again. I mean, yeah. Master says it like it's so easy. Avoid reacting with irritation. If you do not follow such a policy, you will not be able to attune yourself with cosmic truth. Cultivate emotional poise. These are such important points. Remember again what we're talking about. We're talking about what we've been given naturally and how we waste it. These are interesting little blurbs that I found here. Do not squander your soul's peace by constantly running after small desires. When the vast reservoir of inner peace is let out through channels of little desires, those waters of contentment are lost on the soil of material perceptions. So he's telling us, do not squander your soul's peace by going after every little desire, because we deplete ourselves and we can't hold on to, again, that energy of inner contentment. We're going after this, then this, then this. Those waters of contentment are lost on the soil of material perceptions. Doesn't that just sound like Master? I mean, he speaks like that, on the soil of material perceptions. I love it. Then he talks about, this is not in any order, these are just things that I found scattered throughout our literature. Destructive jealousy, he talks about, sometimes acts like a psychological oven which slowly bakes your brain, nerves, and heart with continuous heat of vexation and mean misery. If you ever feel jealous, use that fire of jealousy to burn up your own shortcomings. That is really, again, just how important it is to do what Jyotish so often talks about. The minute we feel these things, to nip it in the bud. You know, this reading that I started to talk about on Sunday that Lakshmi gave me, or I chose, I wish I had brought it with me. I got nervous on Sunday because when I said, as soon as I read that first word, I put it away, which I did, nobody laughed. And that really bothered me. I was used to thought that would be funny. It wasn't funny. I was making a point, and I guess people here knew it, of how much we still carry those fears of being wrong or of being seen. But that letter, and I remember it clearly because, you know, this is a book that I've studied a great deal. When I read it, I didn't know what was coming. And there was so much in it that was so beautiful. But one of the things that Sister was saying to this other sister is, it's complex because she was bringing several points together, but she said to her, you're often speaking like, this is just one small point. Why does this one get that? Or why does that one get this? Or why do you have it? Why don't I have it? Why don't I get the good job? Why don't I get a chance to do this? Why doesn't Master talk with me? And Sister said something. So it's like this. It's jealousy. And it's when you hear it that way, you realize, as Sister Gyanamata did immediately, she said to her, I know you don't really want my life. I know you don't want what I have. You know, Sister lived in enormous pain. Her chores were incredible. And she looked at her and says, you don't want this life. Really, what she wound up saying is, we each get exactly that we deserve. She actually used the word deserve, and need. But she was pointing out in a way how silly and what a waste of energy jealousy is. Because none of us can have what anybody else has. That's their karma. This is our karma. And she was saying to her, quit thinking that you deserve more than you actually deserve. Behave in a way as if you, how did she, I wish I could have her words because they were beautiful, but live in a way that would have you deserve what you want, not just think you get to get what you want. It was beautifully phrased. It was one of many points in the letter, but it was such a direct hit on what jealousy means and what a drain of energy it is, because it's purposeless. Getting what anybody else has would not do us any good. It wouldn't serve us. We wouldn't probably even love it, but it certainly wouldn't help us because we each have our own karma that we're living out. Master was talking about this a lot. This actually, no, I was thinking it sounded like a material success book, but I know Master wrote this. So, but he does talk about business competitors because jealousy is so common in business. And he said, if you ever feel jealous of your business competitor, he said, that's where he said, use that fire of jealousy to burn up your shortcomings in your own business. It is very wasteful to use up creative vitality, brain, and will force in non-productive, evil-producing activity, which he's saying we behave badly when we're jealous. That's evil-producing activity. To even harbor the thought of hurting another person's business is to squander the reservoir of your thought power. Squander the reservoir of your thought power. Can you carry how many different ways of squandering energy? Just before we were talking about squandering our soul's peace. Now we're talking about the power of our thoughts. I mean, just so many ways. They always give us the way out. So he said, better than constructive jealousy is the emulative spirit by which gather the best points from your rivals and apply them to your own life on a still more improved scale. Let desire to grow take the place of jealousy. Let desire to grow. So again, that means over and over, whichever area we're talking about, they're saying, take that energy and use it, keep it in and use it constructively. I should have made a list of all of the ways that we've mentioned. I mean, we started out talking about Kundalini, squandering time, right? With idle chatter. I'm just looking this back. Moods, cultivate emotional poise, showing us all of the different ways that we squander our trust. I'll finish soon and we can talk a little bit. Practice loving those who do not love you. Feel for those who do not feel for you. Be generous to those who are generous only to themselves. It's powerful. But it is probably all of us have tried those things. And all of us have had the experience of how freeing it is, how much richer we feel when we get it right, when we actually love those who aren't loving us or feel for those who aren't feeling for us. Be generous to those who are generous only to themselves. Really, you feel so much better than spending the time saying, why aren't they giving me this? Why aren't they loving me? Why aren't they treating me the way I would treat them? I've lived this. It's much better to do it this way. It's much better to listen to. I'll just read you a couple of last things that Swamiji wrote, and then we'll talk. This is Swamiji. Transcending these qualities does not result in loss. Instead, the energy is withdrawn and transmuted into a higher quality, leading to increased energy and power. We have tremendous power within us, but when we squander it outwardly, we lose that power. This teaching highlights the importance of not squandering our gifts and instead using them to elevate our consciousness and energy. Now, everything I just said is remarkably inclusive. I mean, we could talk about moods for a long time, but when we think about when we're anxious, when we're restless, when we get irritated, when we're upset, when we're jealous with somebody, just all of these ways that we've talked about it, how much time we waste wanting material things, if we're not being able to hold them up as a gift from God, and maybe a lot of it ways that we will serve God. I mean, in some ways, just less than an hour of talk about this, and it's just so, there could be much, much more, but it's so inclusive, showing us all the different ways that we have leaks. That's what it is. We have leaks. This is somebody else commenting on Swamiji. Additionally, Swamiji notes that many people live in the past or future, which commits their energy to projects and leaves little for enjoying the present moment. He stresses the importance of being content in the present to direct energy constructively. So, I don't even know if I realized when I was pulling that together before about how much that speaks to so many aspects of our lives. But again, I think saying that anytime we have a leak, we are squandering our trust. That's what I would say, in summary.
Where from did you make a note from many things?
Many things throughout the library, and just looking for anything that Swamiji, our master, said about not just squandering, but then as I got the gist of what was going on, just reading. But I can make a list of these things and email them to you. Not this whole piece, there's a lot of extra words here, but the times and the ways, and it's limited. It's endless, because here's the truth. This is why the whole beginning, and we should end with Kundalini, is so important, because anytime we're not drawing that energy up, it's going out. And then we are squandering our trust. If you squander it, the trust will, he says, pass to another, but he doesn't mean that literally. Realizing what you own is held by you in trust. Treat it responsibly. I could just leave it there. So these are just ways. It's not inclusive. What is inclusive is the whole concept of Kundalini. Just because every time we behave well, we're using our energy correctly. Anytime we behave well about anything. But I'll list these few things. Take out key sentences and I'll send them to you. Any comments or questions?
One of the things,
We have to make sure it's turned on.
this way,
There you go.
one of the things,
Hold it up higher, Pooja, remember? Hold it near the top. As a girl, yeah.
one of the things I was trying to, that you said, that when we love someone,
Is it off? Okay.
when we love someone or be kind to someone against their indifference or another mental state, we actually teach them how to. If we can love someone who is not friendly to us, they learn from us that how to do that and send that across to another person. This is a way how we harvest our energy rather than dissipating it, like you were saying. That when we squander, because we get caught into the negativity that is lurking in there, rather than taking part into that negativity, we can charge that situation with our positive nature or whatever we want to cultivate.
Here's where the problem is, if I'm understanding you, but come back to me if I'm not. There are very few instances when it is our job to fix anybody. Very few instances. This is a hard thing to get. If we want to love somebody for the pure joy of loving, that's good. If there's any expectation that they will learn from that, we're in grave danger. I mean that, really.
Exactly. I totally support that. I was just trying to say that when we love our children, say, we may have some expectation or we may not have some expectation. In the middle we are. But they learn from our behavior and they pass it on like a chain reaction. The one atom, one particle
Hopefully.
touches another particle and it carries on. But also I totally agree that it is not in our hand to correct anybody.
And also that this is such a subtle thing. Love is something that we have to just give freely with no expectation. And it gets more and more and more difficult in certain circumstances. The joy in it, the spiritual growth in it, I don't think we would argue about this. I mean, I know you and I know, but it's tricky only because this is a class and truth needs to be spoken here to the best of our ability. We hope our children learn by our example and by the fact that their hearts are touched and they're transformed by it, or that they came in because they needed your love in just the way you would give it. We hope that's true with our friends, with our partners. I mean, that's what we would like. But it happens sometimes, but not all the time. And I think it's important, since we're talking about what we do with our own energy, that we give that love absolutely freely and unconditionally. And even with our children, where, this is not personal to you at all, most people think rules change with children. But rules don't really change with children. That's the hardest thing, you know, just the hardest thing. And I mean, this will sound so crazy to most people, and I know it, and I'm embarrassed to say it. I'm feeling it with my dog. I feel it with Max. It is how much I want him to experience my love and feel safe and loved and to make great giant steps forward in his spiritual evolution so he can come back as a wonderful person in the next lifetime and not have to be a dog again. I mean, whatever it is, I can just imagine what it's like when it's a child. But any time that there's any expectation about the love, it takes something from us. You agree with that, right? Yeah.
That's what you were saying, that the drop against the kundalini, that when we have any expectation or any
That's
thing,
exactly
that's
right.
the drop against
It
the
does.
kundalini.
Yeah. And it's very hard. I just had a person call me, they're not here, they don't even live in this state, who has a special needs child. And she is obsessed with fixing that child and making everything perfect for that child, to the exclusion of everything else in her life, her other children, her husband. It's a totally neurotic, compulsive, and obsessive action. I know that she loves her child. Very good woman. I just met her, but I could feel so good, very smart, devoted. It's like watching a train derail going 90 miles an hour. It's big, and all of that energy. And she thought we were going to talk about how to fix him, and I had to say to her, we can't talk about anything until we get you help, because you have to let go of any notion that it's your job to fix him, which is so hard for a mother. But wait, I just had an important thought, a corollary to that. Oh, because something Shantila said reminded me of this. And this is another absolute basic truth, but boy, is it hard to hold on to. We're not doing anything. We're not. God's doing it all. God always was, He is, and He always will be. But it is so hard to try and remember that it's not us doing it, and that there's a plan. Our job is to tune into the plan so that we can have ears to hear. That in and of itself isn't easy. But wow, it's just so easy to think. So I'm not making fun of that woman. I really, really liked her. And I'm sure I'll speak with her again. And I saw where she was with such clarity. I had to be careful that I didn't want to fix her, because that was the next step. She's trying to fix her son. I'm trying to fix her. None of it's going to work. But so I could just hold her for an hour and a half, however long we were together, and just care about her and offer her advice, because she was looking for advice with no need or expectation. I mean, otherwise, we couldn't do our work, we couldn't do anything. We'd just constantly we are like batteries, and that really is what magnetism and energy is, and we're just like that. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, everything we're doing, are we recharging our battery or are we losing charge? And that is important. And it doesn't matter what the situation is or who the person is. No matter how much we love people, is what we're doing, are we being recharged by the main source, infinite source of energy? Yeah. I'm looking at you because you spoke, but I know you know this.
Oh, I'm not appreciating. I'm just
Okay, good.
it. Yeah.
Anybody else have a comment or a question? Sure, thoughts are good.
When you said it's important to tune into the plan, right? The magnetism of, if we're bringing our consciousness up and we're practicing that throughout the day, then we're more intuitive because we're listening, we're attuning. And if we're paying, and I say if because it's so hard to practice that, right? But I can only imagine how easy it is to then notice when the energy around is off. And then the key is then listening and taking action. Because sometimes we notice and we stay, at least I'll speak for myself, I might notice something and then I'm like, now what do I do with it? And then I'm standing there in it. And I love the way you said it's okay to stand up and walk out or excuse yourself as soon as you notice what's happening. That's our ability to stop allowing the source to slip away,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It was really helpful to hear you say that.
Good. You know, one of the things that I got very, I don't know, like a kind of almost frightening clarity, both thinking about that talk on Sunday and now, right now, as I'm listening to all of us, it's like we're walking. God didn't want it to be this way, I know that. It's not after us, but I feel as if life is a minefield. I mean, because there are so many ways for us to, even with the best intention, you know, there's no way to think our way through this. It is way too complicated. And even when we're doing something like the staff gets together and we talk about, and there's problems. I mean, there's real problems. We're each talking, we're each giving it our best. And then sometimes I leave and I say to myself, tense with will, that was the meaning, relax and feel. Like, what is trying to happen here? Because it is so complicated, because even after, in one little lifetime, 40-some years devoted on a path, I can be afraid to open a letter. Where did that come from? What could, I would want to hear what's in the letter, but I actually felt frightened for moments. It was the strangest thing to realize that fear of being seen, something in me being seen that's ugly or not perfect. I mean, good God, everybody can look and see it. It doesn't need to be Sister Gyanamata. But you know, we don't walk around aware of it, and all of a sudden, she was going to tell me something. And I really believed it, too. I felt I had prayed so hard on the beach, and she was going to tell me. She did. The letter was deep, and of course, one wonders, could you get any letter from her? And there would be something in it for you. But we are on, I forget what Master's words for it were. If anybody remembers, tell me. He didn't call it a minefield, but he said this. He said, life is, you know, watch where you step, basically. When I come up upon it next, I'll share it. Do you remember? No. Something about this point. Everybody knows it's hard. Everybody. But our job is to just keep trying. That's the thing. You know, it's not even important in a way if we get each moment of it perfect or not. It doesn't matter. It's the effort. You know, that's what it means. God watches the heart. So, yeah.
I think it's interesting, you know, you're referencing that this moment of opening a letter and having that hesitation, that fear of being seen. And I think that what comes along with that vulnerability or that hesitation is also the idea of being seen and being vulnerable in the space of such love. Sister Gyanamata is so representative of love. Of course, God is that as well. You know, it's the saint who said, if you knew how much God loved you, you would die for joy. Because that is the shift of the ego from the littleness to the infinite, and the ego doesn't want to let that go. We have no problem highlighting, acknowledging, living with our faults when we're down here. Yeah, well, I'm just me and I'm flawed. But when we have to stand in that space of knowing that we are just so infinitely loved, and it comes back to, I was thinking about it because of the beautiful language of the prosperity this week, and just what's been entrusted to you. And to hold that and to know, I mean, what does it mean to be entrusted with something? It means that somebody believes in you, supports you, knows your truth. And that's far more vulnerable than somebody pointing out the flaw that we already know is within us, you know, in a certain way. So I think it's powerful to look at it from that standpoint as well.
I agree with you. And you know, and it's so, I completely agree with you. And it's so important to keep coming back to, you weren't saying this, but it triggered it in my mind, and it's part of it is, let me just see, it was so, oh, Swamiji said, either in the reading on Sunday or in the expanded rays of the same light, I don't remember, somewhere, he said, we have to be very careful that we don't, you just reminded me of this, just say, like, oh, of course I do this, I'm only human. You know that. Was that in the reading? Or was it, it must have been in the other rays if you didn't hear it. But anyway, where he said, sort of what you're saying, if we can accept that, Swamiji's saying, don't do that. It's very interesting. But it's true, I completely feel what you're saying about Sister Gyanamata, and when you feel such pure love. I think that's why I got so engrossed in the book a couple of years ago when I did, that I was writing the book, because it's amazing to be loved like that. She didn't spare any words. She was tough. Lakshmi knows. She couldn't even say it. You couldn't even use some of the letters, right? She said, I can't give this letter to somebody. She's harsh. If it happens to be true for you, you'd go, ouch. But you're so loved in it that you can't deny it. Anybody? Yeah.
My mic on? Can you hear me?
No.
No? Can you hear me?
No.
There, now you can. Because when you read this afternoon, I had a very similar comment, Evelyn, to what you did, said about attuning ourselves. And I was, as you were speaking earlier, Shanti, especially the part about peace, and I was thinking about, what does it mean to squander the gift of attunement, or intuition, I think is how you phrased it, Evelyn. And it comes back to a little bit of what you are talking about right here, you and Lakshmi are talking about, which is the intention. Having the intention to attune, to use my intuition for thy will. I'm not always going to be perfect at it, but if I have the intention to be perfect at it, as long as, and this is the real squandering part, I don't go subconscious and just pay attention to those subconscious things of desires. Everything that you've been saying here. And I'm really, really enjoying this secret for that right there.
Yeah. When you realize, part of what you're saying is that it all comes down to conscious intention versus living unconsciously. Yeah. And I think that's really true. Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to share, this is a constant realization, and I think in this class it has gone much deeper into my mind and into my being, that I had been squandering my energy with too much willpower, too much self-effort, forgetting that the 75% needs to be received with an open heart. And I was in just sharing a little bit personally that I have been in conversation with God that, God, I really want you now, and now, and now. And forgetting to relax with an openness that is necessary. Just a couple of days ago, I was reading something, and I think Swami has written somewhere that if you want to know if you're making spiritual progress, you need to see if you're growing calmer and more joyful. And one more thing he says, I forget. And I reflected, I was like, no. So just when you were speaking, I realized that even with your virtues, if you go too far, it can be squandering.
That's a very good point. Thank you for saying that. Took courage to reveal that about yourself. But it's true, because then it's, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. It's exhausting. Yeah.
Now, at work, I do yoga in the 12 steps. And last week I walked in, no, 2 weeks ago I walked in, and everyone was sitting on the mat. And that never happens. Like usually they're talking, it was just quiet on the mat. And I was surprised, and I said, I don't think what I have planned for today is gonna work, because I wanted everyone to stand, but they were sitting. And so I closed my notebook and I said, okay, let's do something different. And I did Hansa with them.
Are these coworkers?
No, these were our patients.
Oh,
So I did Hansa for about 20 minutes. And then at the end, I just did a few sitting asanas. And we really didn't do the discussion at all. I just asked them, how are you feeling right now? We went around, and they shared their emotions and how intensely they were feeling it. Mostly everyone said, peaceful, calm, quiet, and then it ended. And so I invited them to consider inviting a family member to the family group later, because we have really poor attendance. So the next day, I found out that 90% of them, with the exception of one, so 98, brought someone to support them. And when they were asked what was the takeaway from the week, about 3/4 of them said that they had a moment where they realized that they didn't crave. And when they were asked, when did you notice it, they said, during Yoga in the 12 Steps, it was during that time that they were doing Hansa.
wow.
And it just blew my mind away, because I had no idea, like, okay, something else is happening here. And I was just so thankful that they gave me the feedback, because I didn't really know, well, did that go well? I've never done that before in group. And that when you were speaking and that putting that energy out, they gave me the clue, but they did the work of sitting there, and they were receptive and they were open. And I really see how the power of the masters and just God and Guru just being right there, even in this moment where for a moment they knew what it was like not to crave. What a relief and a sense of peace, right? And that in that moment they were not allowing their kundalini to slip out.
Yeah.
They were restoring.
That's right.
And it just came to me as I was listening to this talk, like I feel like I understood what happened, because I was in such awe of it, like, wow. They didn't tell me, they told somebody else.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That really is, that whole thing of not allowing energy to go out, but holding it, and which is what you saw happening. What a great thing that you did, that you could just turn it on in a moment like that, to give those people that kind of an experience. That's wonderful. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. What a dynamic discussion for a small group. Beautiful.